Big Mac Talks.
Mason Rudolph has started a total of 3 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 2 seasons, yet he has been the best quarterback over that span for the team. In this video, we're going to discuss whether or not Mason Rudolph deserves to be an NFL starter. Before I go further, it would mean a lot if you could help out the channel by subscribing. I'd like to start doing fan polls and giveaways once the channel reaches 1,000 subscribers, so please take a minute and join the community. For most of this NFL season, Steelers fans were cringing weekly watching Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky fail to push the ball down the field. Mason Rudolph, on the other hand, came in and played very efficiently while also taking chances when necessary. This allowed him to go 3-0 and arguably be the reason the Steelers made the playoffs down the stretch, and now apparently has given him the leverage to reject a contract renewal from the team, as he is confident another team will be happy enough with his services as a starting quarterback. Now, maybe he just wants to play in a division that doesn't see him play Myles Garrett 2 times a year, but in actuality, Rudolph is clearly bothered by the fact that he has regularly been passed up over Pickett and Trubisky over the last 2 seasons, despite dismal results from both. Mason Rudolph, however, was not dismal this season. Across 3 starts for the Steelers, he threw for 716 yards and also added 3 touchdowns and did not throw any interceptions. This may not sound like much, but considering Pickett himself threw only 6 touchdowns across 12 games, Rudolph would be justified in his frustrations in not starting for a larger portion of this season. This is further exemplified when you realize that Mitch Trubisky also was named the starter before Rudolph. In 2 starts for the Steelers this season, Trubisky was able to average a touchdown per game. However, he also threw 3 interceptions, had a 10% worse completion percentage than Rudolph, and was 0-2 as a starter before being replaced. When comparing the stats of the 3 men across their entire careers in Pittsburgh, Rudolph has clearly been the best of the 3. Outside of rushing yards and touchdowns, he has dominated both Pickett and Trubisky in respect to most passing-based stats. Note, these stats are only factoring games where the respective quarterback was actually listed as a starter. Rudolph was the only of the 3 men this year who was able to push the ball down the field and take advantage of talented Pittsburgh receivers such as Allen Robinson, Deontay Johnson, and George Pickens. Pickett, on the other hand, ranked 5th worst in bad throw percentage with Trubisky right behind him. Rudolph, in limited games, had the second best percentage here with only a 10.1 bad throw ratio, nearly 10 points better than Pickett. Rudolph also had his longest passing play be 14 yards longer than Pickett and nearly 60 yards longer than Trubisky. Given his success towards the end of the 2023 season and the Steelers using a first-round pick just 2 seasons ago on a quarterback, I was confident that Rudolph would be granted the starting job for 2024, and statistically, we can see this is justified. However, with Rudolph seemingly not returning to Pittsburgh, what will happen to him next? Comparing Rudolph solely to Pickett and Trubisky doesn't necessarily justify Rudolph as a starting quarterback outside of a team that would again have those exact 3 quarterbacks to pick from. So, how does Rudolph compare to the rest of the league? Well, among starters this year, he ranked first in yards per attempt, second in completion percentage, first in passer rating, second in the longest touchdown with 86 yards, and 21st in 40-plus yard pass plays, despite only playing in 3 games. Yes, obviously a full season of Rudolph putting up these numbers may not have been possible, so the stats are skewed, but at minimum he showed he can play as a top-level starter over a multi-game period in the NFL. When looking at what a full season of Rudolph would look like, we can take the averages of his 13 starts and get some basic numbers to assume what both a 16 and 17 game season could look like for him. Without going too deep into the stats, a basic projected stat line for Rudolph across a full season would actually see him finish in the top 15 in basic quarterback stats in both 2023 and 2022. In fact, in 2022, if he played all 17 games, his projections would see him finish 11th in passing yards, just a few yards behind Aaron Rodgers. Now, if we take out Rudolph's 3-game stretch in 2023, where he was playing against late season defenses contaminated with injuries, his statistics are not on the same level this video has presented. So the question really is, did 2023 truly show who Mason Rudolph is, or was it a fluke? That is the question any interested suitors will have to ask themselves, but considering the Steelers were interested in retaining Rudolph and he/his team has declined the offer, there are likely other interested teams willing to take the risk. The reality is he outperformed 2 first-round picks this season, and that gives Rudolph value. I don't think any team with a current long-term plan in place will replace a stable option with Rudolph or even bring him in as a backup. But I do think any team without a starting option guaranteed for this season is going to be interested in his services. Looking at potential suitors, a few good options for Rudolph could be the Atlanta Falcons, Minnesota Vikings, Washington Commanders, New England Patriots, Las Vegas Raiders, or Denver Broncos. Of these six, I think Atlanta is the best option for Rudolph. The offensive situation in Atlanta is similar to Pittsburgh in that he has a young potential superstar receiver in Drake London, a good second option in Kyle Pitts, and has 2 good running backs he could rely on when needed in Robinson and Algier. The Falcons also have the 8th overall draft pick with several talented options such as Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, or even Marvin Harrison Jr. If he falls down or they wish to trade up, they could select in the draft while still having $25 million in cap space with several solid number 2 or 3 options available at receiver to help Rudolph as well. Furthermore, Rudolph is from South Carolina, which is only a few-hour drive from Atlanta. He is a Christian and a family man, so it wouldn't surprise me if this plays a factor in his decision as well. Even in a world where the Falcons trade up to draft Drake May, Rudolph is very good friends with his brother Luke, which could allow Rudolph to serve as a mentor starter for 1 to 2 years as May develops behind him. But what do you guys think? Does Mason Rudolph deserve a starting NFL job? And if so, where do you expect him to sign? Let me know what you think in the comments and don't forget to subscribe.